This is your Barbados Today evening news update for Thursday, January the 25th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. The sewage spill on the south coast did not cause the recent outbreak of gastroenteritis on the south coast. That's the word from the Ministry of Health, which today reported on its investigations into the 35 suspected cases which occurred last Christmas and Old Year's. The ministry is blaming the outbreak on a single food business which has not been named. According to the ministry, there was no evidence linking the outbreak to the sewage spill or any particular food or beverage. It said no new cases of the virus have been reported since January the 3rd. In the meantime, the Environmental Health Department has stepped up its monitoring in the affected areas to provide guidance to food establishments on safe food handling practices. Just yesterday, Prime Minister Charmaine Stuart gave assurances that his government was working with the Inter-American Development Bank to find a lasting solution to the vexing problem. The entertainment fraternity packed the Coral Ridge Memorial Gardens to bid a fond farewell to one of their own this morning. Charmaine Stuart, the front house manager of the big show, was laid to rest after an emotional service. Our Anmar Goodrich Boyce was there and tells us more.
A moving rendition of the song You Raise Me Up by the island's leading calypsonians reverberated in the sanctuary at the Coral Ridge Memorial Gardens, where friends and family gathered to bid farewell to Charmaine Stuart. Friends and family could not hold back the tears. Many said it was a testimony of the impact of the young woman who was simply gone too soon. The who's who of local entertainment: Red Plastic Bag, The Mighty Griner, iWeb, J Slow, Adrian Clark, Mr. Dale, Mr. Blood, Biggie Irie and others attended the emotional ceremony. Delivering the eulogy, Ronald Hewitt described Stuart, the house manager of the big show, as a friend who was larger than life. Reverend Canon Curtis Goodrich reminded grieving family and friends that death was not the end. He urged them to live godly lives. May she rest in peace. Anmar Goodrich Boyce, Barbados Today.
Barbados is violating its international obligations by keeping the mandatory death penalty on its statute books. That charge was leveled today at the Caribbean Court of Justice when hearings resumed before the Trinidad-based court this morning, where murderers Dwayne Omar Severin and Jabari Sensimania Nervai are challenging their death sentences. Senior counsel for the convicts, Douglas Mendez, also asked the CCJ to make a ruling that ensures Barbados complies with its international obligations to scrap such a law. Mendez, who is working in association with Andrew Pilgrim QC, also accused government of playing games with the death penalty.
The court must exercise its statutory mandate to construe the law with modifications. If the legislature wishes to put the mandatory death penalty back on the books, well, then they have to do their job. They have to account to the electorate for what they do. They can't hide, which is what unfortunately has been happening with the death penalty and the mandatory death penalty in particular. Politicians play games. Everybody talks about the death penalty and carrying it out, then they don't do it because it goes good with the electorate. But if it is that Barbados wishes to have the mandatory death penalty, then the challenge here is for them to pass a law to put it into effect. That would put them in violation of the international obligations, as we all know.
In response, Principal Crown Counsel Anthony Blackman, who is representing the prosecution, said a bill was now before Parliament to abolish the mandatory death sentence. However, Blackman informed the CCJ that he could not say how soon that bill would be passed.
The position with the bill at the moment is that the bill did in fact receive a second reading, and that is where it is at the moment. Why it is taking so long, we cannot assist this honorable court with the reason why it is taking so long. what we would try to assist this honorable court with is to remind this honorable court that based on the Constitution of Barbados, a 2/3 majority is needed for this to pass. And in light of the composition of the government of Barbados as it is, one cannot be reasonably sure when or what, if this bill will in fact get passed to reading and come law sometime in the future.
And President of the CCJ, Sir Dennis Byron, told the hearing this afternoon, after both sides had concluded their submissions on the death sentence, that he would hand down a ruling as soon as possible. In sports now, the West Indies cricket team is likely to be without some of its top players for the crucial ICC World Cup qualifier tournament in Zimbabwe next month. According to a release from the Cricket West Indies, Kieron Pollard, Sunil Narine, Darren Bravo and Andre Russell will not be available. They will be playing in the Pakistan Super League, which starts on February the 22nd and runs to March the 25th. Chris Gayle and Marlon Samuels are, however, in the lineup. The ICC qualifier, which goes from March 4th to 25th, will decide on the top 2 teams for next year's 50-over World Cup in England. CEO of Cricket West Indies, Johnny Grave, says the players' decision have been very disappointing.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Welcome back with news from the region now. In Jamaica. Residents of Tivoli Gardens in West Kingston have threatened to stop voting in national elections if the government fails to compensate them properly for atrocities committed against them in the 2010 incursion. During a protest in front of the Ministry of Justice on Constant Spring Road in St. Andrew yesterday, they expressed outrage that Portfolio Minister Delroy Chuck has seemingly shut the door on a significant number of affected persons getting compensation. In a presentation to Parliament on Tuesday, Chuck said that residents have been receiving compensation, but he refused to entertain persons who are just coming forward when the matter has been closed. He said that the government had given them ample time to apply for compensation. However, many of the protesters claim that they went to the relevant authorities to submit their names for compensation, but they were left off the list. Further afield, the French government has announced a new approach to cannabis users, scrapping potential prison sentences and heavy fines in favor of on-the-spot penalties for smokers in a bid to save police time. France is one of the biggest consumers of cannabis in Europe, with around 700,000 people estimated to use the drug every day. The French Interior Minister, Gerard Colombe, however, said that President Emmanuel Macron will not follow the example of the Netherlands or Spain in tolerating cannabis use by adults, much less legalize it for recreational use, like several U.S. states. That's news and the sports, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook. We are also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Emmanuel Joseph. Have a fantastic evening.